Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Can anyone hear me in the chat? If you can hear me, just push one. Just to confirm. Okay, we got a confirmation. Raining woman, good evening to you. Thank you for the confirmation. Faber, what's going on? Let me just update this docket real quick, then we can get started. All right. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 312. Space and technology. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including all those posted on the community tab. There's a docket in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. And if you are interested in any sort of IT mentorship or IT coaching, we do that on here. Either drop your email after the live stream is over in the comment section, or you can email us and we will, one of us will get back to you. We had a great live stream last night about Black Tech Talk and general IT chat. So we were going over a lot of the innuendos and of getting into IT and what you really need to be prepared for, and what kind of job opportunities are out there right now, what the salaries are going for, and what's going to be happening in the next 6 to 12 months, where you need to be focused on, and also some interview tips and some salary negotiations. So make sure y'all go check that out. All right, so we're going to get started. Hey, what's going on, Marcus A. Brown? Aqua Techie, what's going on? Mega Montana, what's going on, fam? All right. All right, man. Let me pull this up. Pull up the first item on the docket. If you want to get on the panel as well, make sure when you click the link and you're in the waiting room, you raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you. We can advance you to the panel. Also, Raining Woman does life coaching as well. So make sure if you want a life coach. She actually is certified in that area, so she can actually help you out with those life coaching questions and inquiries. All right, so first item on the docket is from Engadget.com. University of Michigan's self-driving car lab now runs on Verizon 5G. Verizon is continuing its very gradual 5G rollout, but this time it's more about the future of transportation than the phone in your hands. The carrier's 5G network is now live at the University of Michigan's M-City test facility to provide a boost to connected self-driving cars. In theory, the combination of abundant bandwidth with low lag will help autonomous vehicles share crucial data with each other, city cameras, and traffic lights to make more informed decisions. A car could receive word of a crash ahead in time to maneuver out of harm's way, or use traffic lights to warn pedestrians before they cross the street. It's not surprising that Verizon would roll out in M-City. The telecom is part of a leadership circle of companies with a stake in the project, including GM and LG. It may be a long time before 5G is truly ready for the road. The millimeter wave tech Verizon and others use might offer tremendous speed, but it's short range and prone to interference. Cities will need to be blanketed in cell sites to ensure reliable connections, and it's not yet clear how well 5G will behave when there are legions of driverless cars roaming the streets. This is more about exploring technology than a vision of what you can expect. So we've talked about this before, that 5G and autonomous vehicles is the new industry going forward. You won't see too many jobs that really focus on the basics of mechanics. This is going to be it: electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and 5G. All of these emerging technologies have a stake in the fourth industrialized society. These are the places where you need to be focused on, or these are the things you need to be focused on in order to be a part of that fourth industrialized revolution. I think there's a lot of opportunities for Black men and Black people to really be a part of that fourth industrialized revolution. Getting your feet wet in this type of stuff. Let me show you real quick. Udacity, yeah. Share my screen again. So this is Udacity.com, and they have nano degree programs that are on average 4 to 6 months. So here we're going to go to the School of Autonomous Systems. So the School of Autonomous Systems, the field of autonomous vehicles is set to grow by 42% within the next 4 years, with salaries for top engineers averaging between $300,000 and $500,000. Advance your career in this rewarding field by studying 15 hours a week. So you can take this program. It's a nano degree program, and it's only about 6 months. And is 1, 2, 3, 4 steps in the program to actually take to be to graduate in terms of self-driving and autonomous vehicle development. So let me drop that in the chat. So you should enroll in something like that if you're trying to get into this industry. That's the fastest way to get in. There are other ways to go about it, but Udacity has a proven track record, and it's been proven by others that this works. This method of learning actually works. I think the tuition is something like $1,200 or $1,500 for the self-driving nano degree program. So checking for you, no, it's online. It's online for all intents and purposes. It's online. That's what Udacity is. It's an online learning school, and actually picking up a lot of traction. I see that a lot of cities are embracing Udacity's Udacity's academic program. So it would be great to see an all-black autonomous car company come out from something like that. So that would be dope. All right, we got 20 people watching and only 14 likes. If you're not going to participate in the chat, at least hit the like button. That is greatly appreciated. So. All right, this next one item on the docket is from BusinessInsider.com. Maybe I should be scared. We asked a 47-year-old truck driver what he thinks about self-driving cars. Rachel Primack. So first of all, I guess, what do you think about self-driving trucks, and what sort of impact do you think they'll have on your career, if any? I'm 47. That I think that I don't know. My career is probably not going to see a whole lot of effect. Some people drive until maybe they are in their 70s. We'll see something at the end of that. But figuring out driving on the road and then traffic is tough. But I think it's the easy part. For instance, I deliver chicken feed, and it's a custom mill. We got to load it. It takes 10 minutes to load, 15 minutes to get to where we're going, making a 15-minute delivery and come back and do that 8 or 9 times a shift. I think that's going to be a very difficult to automate. I don't know. I think it's sort of like a snowball. As they catch one problem and get it fixed, they are going to be able to do the next two easier. I know we got to be ready for the change and just understand that there could be a day when all of a sudden it affects you out of the blue. And I think it will be like that. I think there's a lot of people going to be working at it. And then all of a sudden, either a regulatory barrier is going to drop or a technological barrier will be crossed. Obviously, there are safety concerns with self-driving trucks, and the labor implications would be challenging for truckers. But what are some of the good parts about self-driving trucks? The easy thing for self-driving vehicles, if anything can be considered easy, is that once a particular company's program learns something, all the vehicles know it, as opposed to with trucking. Every new driver has to be trained from scratch. So you bring a new truck online and the program is uploaded just like our computer engine management programs already uploaded. I think that we could do a lot of this stuff safely. Tesla was saying that their cars were already safer than human drivers, and I don't think that's a terribly outrageous claim. Just because people probably put it on autopilot when it's doing the easy part, getting on the ramp and riding the miles until you get to the next city, and then you take it off autopilot when you get off. Are you familiar with trucking in New York? They do triples up there. Rachel, no, I am not. I'm not as familiar about that. I've done some ride-alongs in New York for last mile deliveries, but not with any trucking company per se. I did a ride-along with UPS and Coca-Cola. I imagine other companies do it a bit differently. The last mile stuff you did is probably the complex stuff that's going to be most difficult to automate. But if you drive to Thruway, in New York, you'll notice as you get onto the Thruway, there's a whole lot of trailers parked off to the side. There's always a lot, and there's a whole bunch of trailers. Well, in New York, they allow you to run 3 trailers hitched up on New York Thruway system. So they bring trailers to drop a lot. Then the trailers come hooked up. You get a whole bunch of single drivers bring trailers in and drop them, and then one guy comes in and he drives all the long miles, drops it at the drop a lot on the other hand, and then other guys come in and again do the last mile. Interesting. This is a picture of what he's referring to. So is platooning where you see self-driving trucks starting out? I could see something like that working initially and fairly soon because that's the least complex. You've got less interactions with traffic coming across. Everything you're going your direction and generally at about the speed you're going. But there's so much complexity. You've got a hitch. You've got to check your equipment. You've got to pull your hood over. There's a lot of things that can be automated. Checking the oil, but actually walking around checking the brake thickness and stuff like that, that's going to add a lot of cost, and I don't think it would be where the initial big returns would be. I think they're going to need truckers for those things. There's a lot of unknowns. We've had airplanes that could literally, a pilot could take them to the end of the runway and leave the autopilot on the takeoff roll to complete the flight to the landing and until it drives off the end of the runway. We've had that since I was in the military in 1991 when I joined. It was in its infancy. It was early GPS and stuff like that. But they still have a pilot there because the most complex situations that happen most infrequently require one for now. So when do you think automation will hit trucking? This stuff happens in such big lumps. The snowball rolls and rolls and rolls, and all of a sudden it's huge. And we turn from horse and buggies to cars in a matter of, 10 years or 15 years. There's some precedent as to how this stuff will work and that certain technologies have really upended industry over the years. Look at the Industrial Revolution. Look at the change over to cars in the early 1900s. The aviation industry from not being able to fly to flying commercially within, 15 or 20 years. And the people who were most affected by that simply had to find a new career. Nobody was making horse whips or buggy wheels. I don't know. Every month we hear a new thing. We've got a self-driving vehicle that went 100 miles and it did this or did that. I think we've crossed some initial barrier. I think there's a lot of stuff that remains to be solved before we see a truck that can take off from Walmart's distribution center, drive through the city streets, and get on the highway. So go where it's going and drop it at the next distribution center. But I think there will still be a lot of truck driving jobs for a long time. I think that it's possible that some jobs will be displaced fairly quickly. it's such a complex thing. The environment is so complex. If we were starting a new system that with vehicles that can talk to each other and every vehicle on the road could communicate with each other, you'd have a much simpler setup because you could speed up and reduce speed to ensure that there's no traffic backups, or you could actually cross intersections without stopping at traffic lights and stuff like that. But we're horseshoeing this stuff into a system with millions and millions of cars and trucks in all states or of repair and serviceability. We've heard a lot about the truck driving shortage or the truck driver shortage. The American Trucking Association is estimating a shortage of 160,000 truck drivers by 2028. If the current trend continues, so wouldn't self-driving trucks be good in the case of that shortage? It seems that they are more willing to spend money on equipment than they are on people. So it could alleviate some of the perceived crunch. I'm sort of excited for the technology. I'm sort of excited to see what happens. I think things will change. It'll be interesting to see. Driver pay has really lagged behind. There are a lot of trucking companies screaming about truck driving shortages. If you look in the 1980s, driver pay in today's dollars would be well over $100,000, and it's just not a common number today. There's already a shortage of drivers, which is sort of self-inflicted, maybe. If you look at the companies like UPS or some of the Coca-Cola distributors, some of them pay really well. If you look at the ones that pay really well, they really don't have trouble getting or keeping drivers. I don't think it's that I'm scared of it. I just think that if you don't acknowledge the reality of change where you are in the process of change, that you're likely to be one of the ones left behind. The trucking industry has not, unless you've been a union driver, been waiting to put you in a really good place for retirement. And then I had a kid who had a back surgery and we lost another one. I spent my whole retirement so I could be working till I'm 70 or 75. And this could very well affect me in a big way. It's something that I've got to read about. I've got to stay on top, and you've got to be ready for it, or you're sticking your head in the sand, I guess, is what I'm saying. I'm not going to read this whole thing because I think he's touching on something that we've been saying probably for a long time, that autonomous vehicles, they're not going to back down from all of this. They're going to, for all intents and purposes, go forward with this because whoever leads autonomous vehicle development will be the one who writes the standards. And because of that, they can't slow down now. They have to keep going. They have to keep going with this. There's so much invested into it, not just from an infrastructure standpoint, but from a technological standpoint. There has to be more implementation first, before you can see things really start to take off. But the article we read the other day, they're talking about 2027. This article is saying, around the same time frame. So what it sounds like to me is that we got about 10 years before this stuff is really up and ready to go. So that's why the Udacity program is going to be key, because if you can pass that Udacity program, you can pretty much do the job on your own, or at least be a part of that technological development, because that program is tried and tested by those in the industry. Let me see if anybody is trying to get on. All right, let me drop the link again. right, let me get to the next item on the docket. All right, this one is from Engadget.com. Verizon will launch home 5G everywhere its mobile service is available. Verizon may be rolling out 5G at a pokey pace, but at least you won't have to choose which kind of 5G you get. Consumer Division Chief Ronan Doom told investors that fixed 5G home service will in due course be available in every market where mobile 5G is available. It's one network, he said. There's little stopping Verizon from offering both. The carrier is planning a full launch for home in late in 2019 using the official 5G standards. So the synchronicity might begin relatively quickly. The initial service ran on an in-house approach to 5G and offers typical speeds of 300 megabits. It won't compete with gigabit fiber, but it's faster than many landline connections. And if you get an indoor antenna, let you set it up yourself. The main catch, as always, is the slow pace of 5G deployment. Verizon's current 5G is available in parts of just 10 cities, and it can only roll out so quickly when the ultra-wideband technology requires an extensive number of cell sites to provide solid coverage. That reach should extend to 30 cities before 2019 is over, but that still means that it could be a long while before 5G home comes to your neighborhood. Still, that beats having to deal with the limited coverage of Fios and other wired high-speed services. Interesting. This is going to be very interesting because the new laptop I ordered actually has 5G built in. So I won't be able to get that until October when it ships. So I'd be interested to see how this actually works. I know some of the preliminary tests the last month or so has been showing 1.7 to 2 gigabits per second. 4G only pushes around 25 to 35 megabits per second. So this is exponentially leaps and bounds faster than 4G. This isn't like 20% faster. This is like 150 times faster. We know that we saw the last article about 5G helping out autonomous vehicles. So we know this is here to stay. I don't care what anybody says about the cancer effects or the possible cancer effects of this. They're rolling this out and they're not backing down from it. So. All right, this one is from TechRadar.com. Microsoft could ditch Intel for AMD with its Surface Laptop 3. It appears that Microsoft could be launching a 15-inch Surface Laptop 3, which will run on AMD Ryzen processors at its Surface hardware event on October 2nd. If true, this will be the first time AMD hardware could be powering a Surface device, as previously Microsoft has stuck to Intel processors. New Microsoft patent teases Surface 7 Pro with USB Type-C. It could certainly sorry, it would certainly be a big win for AMD and a nasty blow for Intel if that is the case. Microsoft Surface devices are premium products that are supposed to show off what Windows 10 devices are capable of. So having AMD hardware in them could be seen as a strong recommendation for Microsoft. The rumors reported by WinFuture come from entries in non-public databases of European retailers, which leads the website to claim that it is confident that new Surface Laptop 3 15-inch model, I think I just lost my screen. The rumors reported by WinFuture comes from entries in non-public databases of European retailers, which leads the website to claim that it is confident that the new Surface Laptop 3 15-inch model will definitely be equipped with AMD CPUs. The Surface Laptop 3 is also rumored to have a 15-inch display, with previous models only offering 13-inch screens. By offering 15-inch Surface Laptop 3, Microsoft is able to target people who are looking for a larger laptop. While we don't know what AMD chips Microsoft would use for a 15-inch Surface Laptop 3, if one even exists, WinFuture suggests that the AMD Ryzen 5 3550H and the Ryzen 7 3750H are likely candidates due to being powerful quad-core chips with integrated AMD Radeon RX Vega graphics, which makes them ideal for powering large screen laptops. We'll be attending the Surface event on October 2nd ourselves, and if the Surface Laptop 3 is there, you can be sure we'll get our hands on it and report back. We talked about this since last year, that AMD is going to be a come up in the next year or so, and that you'd have to be sleeping to not really, if you're in the tech industry, you would have to be sleeping to not really understand the significance of AMD at this point. Intel's manufacturing issues have gave way to AMD in the market, and it doesn't look like AMD is going to let up anytime soon. AMD is going to be in a driver's seat for quite some time, probably until 2023, 2024, because they're already ahead of Intel as it stands right now, and they're going to make big bank off of all of these new contract agreements. You know, we saw one with Amazon, AWS for the data center or cloud computing. We saw a deal with I believe Sony and Microsoft Xbox. We saw a big deal with Apple, if I remember correctly. Apple has brought in AMD for their new systems, and now you're saying that the new Microsoft premium laptop will come with an AMD processor. This is huge. This is huge. So pay attention to AMD stock, because it's going to keep skyrocketing over the next year and a half. Checking for you asks, what about 4G LTE versus 4G? I don't know. That's a very vague question. LTE is usually used for voice as well. Regular 4G just has data connection. So Cashmatic asks, how high do you think it goes? In terms of AMD, when we predicted last year that AMD would balloon, um, I think they were moving at like maybe $10 a share or something like that, $9 a share. And we predicted that back in August of last year. By November, they were up close to $40 a share. And then they hit $49 max and came back down. I'm speculating that AMD will hit $90 a share by this time next year. They're going to hit $90 by this time next year. They may not stay there, but they'll definitely hit it, because that's what the trajectory is pointing at. They're only going to keep getting better. They're going to keep putting out faster products. They're just going to be a better product, especially if they get inside autonomous vehicles and autonomous trucks and stuff of that nature. They're already in the major data centers. Cray, which is a supercomputer company, has chosen AMD over Intel for this very reason. So the new supercomputers will be running AMD processors. All right, let me get to this next item on the docket. Engadget.com. McDonald's plans to bring artificial intelligence voice technology to its drive-thrus. Fast food is about to get even faster. McDonald's announced, it should be saying McDonald's. McDonald's announced today that it is buying the voice tech startup, Apprente, so it can automate its drive-through menu. The Mountain View-based company specializes in building voice-based agents that can take orders in multiple languages and accents. The fast food giant has been testing Apprente's technology in several locations, and it expects it will follow for faster, simpler, and more accurate order taking at its drive-thrus. Apprente will form a pivotal part of McDonald's Tech Labs, a new restaurant technology group based in Silicon Valley. The Apprente team will become the group's founding members, and co-founder Itamar Aral will serve as vice president. McDonald's commitment to innovation has long inspired our team. It was quite clear from our various engagements that McDonald's is leading the industry with technology, said Itamar Aral, PhD, co-founder of Apprente and vice president of McDonald's Tech Labs. Apprente was born out of an opportunity to use technology to solve challenging real-world problems, and we're thrilled to now apply this to creating personalized experiences for customers and crew. The company is planning on hiring more engineers, data scientists, and other advanced technology experts to build its presence in Silicon Valley. The fast food giant say there's potential to expand Apprente's technology to other areas like mobile and kiosk ordering. But while the new technology may make life easier for customers, may come at the cost of human jobs. McDonald's self-service kiosks will be implemented across all U.S. restaurant locations by 2020, which could reduce the need to hire as many human cashiers. The food chain's acquisition of Apprente is its third tech deal this year. In April, it acquired Dynamic Yield, a personalized data startup, in order to customize its drive-through menus by the weather, time of day, current restaurant traffic, and trending menu items. It also bought a minority stake in Plexure, a New Zealand-based mobile app technology company. So McDonald's, man, I mean, how much more simplistic can you really get? Let's go back to Udacity for a second. You know, when we talk about automation, there were people who were walking around saying, "Oh, you know, you guys sell fair porn." This is not fair porn. McDonald's It's saying that they're going to automate their drive-throughs through artificial intelligence that can detect multiple languages and learning capabilities based on the weather, based on the time of day, based on the traffic, based on what's trending. So on Udacity site, they have a nano degree program in artificial intelligence. AI is one of the fastest growing and most transformational technologies of our time, with 2.3 million new jobs opening up by 2020. What did McDonald's say? McDonald's plans to put automated kiosks in all of their restaurant locations by 2020. So you see that? Spend 10 hours per week to advance your career. Nano degree program starting soon. AI product manager, intro to machine learning engineer, AI programming with Python, deep learning, artificial intelligence for trading, computer vision, natural language processing, NLP, deep reinforcement learning, artificial intelligence. 10 hours a week is all that's required. 6 months for a nano degree in artificial intelligence. 2.3 million jobs come in by 2020 or after 2020. McDonald's is moving their drive-throughs to artificial intelligence. Their kiosks will be artificial intelligence driven. The apps will be on your phone will be artificial intelligence driven. 5G is coming out. New phones are coming. I don't know what else to tell you guys. "29 people watching, only 25 likes. Please hit the like button if you're not going to participate in the chat." Cashmatic asks, can it compete with NVIDIA? It can compete with NVIDIA if you count the CPU GPU combination, which is something that NVIDIA lacks. NVIDIA would have to leverage Intel CPUs in order to get that same combination of power. But we see that NVIDIA is kind of shifting away from just GPUs and going into SoCs, which are systems on chips. All right, this one is from CoinTelegraph.com. Gartner, blockchain will transform most industries in 10 years. Information technology service management giant Gartner foresees blockchain becoming transformative for most industries within 10 years. Gartner made its remarks in the press release accompanying its 2019 hype cycle for blockchain research published on September 12th. The hype cycle report tries to provide an overview of how blockchain capabilities are evolving from a business perspective and maturity across different industries. Research Vice President at Gartner, David Forlonger, said, even though they are still uncertain of the impact of blockchain will have on their businesses, 60% of CIOs in the Gartner 2019 CIO Agenda survey said that they expected some level of adoption of blockchain technology in the next 3 years. However, the existing digital infrastructure of organizations and lack of clear blockchain governance are limiting CIOs from getting full value with blockchain. The data shows how the market changed when compared with the results of the surveys that Gartner published in May last year. when only 66% of chief information officers knew about blockchain, but only 22% planned on using it. Per the release, nearly 18% of banking and investment services CIOs say that they have adopted or plan to employ some form of blockchain technology within the next 12 months. Another 15% plans to do so in the next 2 years. Furlonger commented, "We see blockchain in several key areas in banking and investment services, primarily focused on permission ledgers. We also expect to continue developments in the creation and acceptance of digital tokens. However, considerable work needs to be completed in nanotechnology-related fields." Gartner also notes that the blockchain industry is seeing the deployment of solutions allowing users to create their own tokens to support the design of complete competition, as well as to enable trading of virtual goods. Another Gartner research executive, Christopher Uzaro, noted, "High user volumes and rapid innovation make the gaming sector a testing ground for innovative application of blockchain. It is the perfect place to monitor how users push the adaptability of the most critical components of blockchain, decentralization and tokenization." Lastly, Gartner reports that blockchain is being used in retail for tracking and tracing services, counterfeit protection, inventory management, and auditing. Still, the report notes that the full potential will be reached once blockchain will be combined with artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. Lastly, the report notes that blockchain can transform business models across all industries, but only if businesses adopt complete blockchain ecosystems. The author concludes, "Without the tokenization and decentralization, most industries will not see real business value." As Cointelegraph recently reported, according to recent research, the blockchain devices market is expected to grow 42.5% at a compound annual growth rate by 2024. I want to read this last sentence here. Still, the report notes that the full potential will only be reached once blockchain will be combined with artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, IoT. So we just got finished talking about McDonald's going all in on artificial intelligence. Blockchain, artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, drone technology, 5G. This is it right here. This is ground zero. Checking for you says, "I foresee NVIDIA acquiring AMD in the future." No, they won't acquire AMD. That won't happen. Hey, what's going on, Willie Littlejohn? AMD is in a scale-up position. It will be impossible. If anybody would acquire AMD at this point, it will probably be Apple. For NVIDIA to swallow an elephant like AMD at this point, it would be massive for them to do something like that. You're looking at the financials, but you're not looking at the tech aspect of it and some of the debt that they may have carried over. Thalia, what's going on? All right, let me get to this next article. All right, this next one is from opensource.com. Why the founder of Apache is all in on blockchain. Brian Bedladoff talks about starting Apache, the tension between pragmatism and idealism, and why he's excited about blockchain. Brian Benladoff is perhaps best known for being a co-founder of the Apache project, which became the Apache Software Foundation. Today, he's the executive director of the Hyperledger Foundation, an organization focused on enterprise-grade, open-source, distributed ledgers, better known as blockchains. He also says he put the first ad banner online and have been apologizing ever since. In a recent conversation on my podcast, Benderloff talks about the goals of the Apache project, the role of foundations generally, and his hopes for blockchain. As Benderloff tells the story, Apache came out of an environment when we might have had a more beneficent view of technology companies. We still thought as them as leading the fight for individual empowerment. At the same time, Benderloff adds there was still a concern that as the web grew, it would lose its character and its soul of this kind of funky domain. Very flat space, supportive of freedoms of speech, freedoms of thought, freedoms of association that were completely novel to us at the time, but now we take for granted, or even we have found weaponized against us. This led him to want Apache to address concerns that were both pragmatic in nature and more idealistic. The pragmatic aspects stem from the fact that iteratively improving upon the NCSA web server was just easier and certainly a lot cheaper than buying Netscape's commercial web server or thinking that IIS or any other commercial options at the time. Benderloff also acknowledges it's nice to have other people out there who can review my code and to work together with. There was also an idealistic notion that tapped into the zeitgeist in the 90s. Benderloff says, this is a printing press. We can help people publish their own blogs, help people publish their own websites, and get as much content liberated as possible and digitized as possible. That was kind of the web movement. In particular, we felt it would be important to make sure that the printing presses remained in the hands of the people. Once Apache HTTPD web server project grew to the point that 70% of the web was running on top of Apache HTTPD, it was clear to the project's participants that more structure was needed. As Benderloff describes it, it was still being built by a group of people whose only connection to each other was that they were all on an emailing list. All had commit to CVS repository. All had shell on a Unix box that I maintain off of wired internet connection. And otherwise, we had no formalism between us. In a way, that was liberating. In a way, we were like, yeah, we don't need overhead. We don't need stuffy bureaucrats. That's kind of how the brain trust runs right now. Benderloff and the others weren't interested in incorporating a for-profit company, given that they all had other projects and startups and weren't looking to make Apache HTTPD a full-time job. However, they recognized the legal risk of not having some sort of corporate shield, especially as the portfolio of Apache's projects grew. As Benderloff puts it, what happens if somebody who owned a patent decided to file a patent lawsuit against the developers of Apache and wanted something as simple and modest as $1 per copy? If they won, and given patent laws, they certainly could win. They'd seek those tens of hundreds of millions of dollars from Apache developers. For that crime of giving away free software, we could lose our homes. Let me fast forward to this. Today, Bernaloff is executive director of the Hyperledger Foundation, which he joined about three years ago, a few months after the first Hyperledger Fabric code drop in late 2015. He says, with Hyperledger, one thing that pulled me in and got me excited was this notion that there are some really important problems we can solve with distributed systems, with distributed ledgers and smart contract techniques. It wasn't programmable money. It wasn't regulatory arbitrage. It wasn't the things people associate with cryptocurrencies that was the driver here. It was the sense that the digitalization of society had led to a future that looked a lot more like big central systems. It was a very un-internet kind of worldview, but it seemed to be the trend line we were on. As a result, blockchain technology seemed urgent to get involved in, and that lined up with the idealistic and pragmatic impulses that I've had, and I think other people in this open source have had, he adds. Specifically, it was the emergence of a set of use cases beyond programmable money that drew in Bernaloff. I think the one that pulled me in was land titles in emerging markets, he recalls. It wasn't just about having a distributed database. It was about having a distributed ledger that actually supported consensus, one that actually had the network enforcing rules about valid transactions versus invalid transactions, one that was programmable with smart contracts on top. This was to make sense to me. This started to make sense to me, and it was something that was appealing to me in a way that financial instruments and proof of work was not. Bernaloff makes the point that for blockchain technology to have a purpose, the network has to be decentralized. For example, you probably want nodes that are being run by different technology partners, or nodes being run by end user organizations themselves, because otherwise, why not just use a central database run by a single vendor or a single technology partner, he argues. So he's basically in support of the use cases of blockchain and the decentralization of it. This falls right in line with open source. Open source is about decentralization and actually a more democratic approach to software development. And plus, he's the head of the Hyperledger, so that goes without saying that he's on board with this. So we talked about blockchain earlier. We talked about AI before that, and 5G before that. EV, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, drones, as well as cloud. And now you have AMD providing these chips that actually going to help further drive this process. Microsoft is behind it. Cray is behind it. Many other computing companies are adopting these technologies going forward, and everyone's pointing at 2020 as being the go year for going live with the first initial wave of these new fourth industrialized emerging tech developments. So that's why we have this conversation about the fourth industrialized revolution, because there's a lot of emerging markets that are going to come out of this that Black people need to be really focused on. I don't see how checking for you. I don't see where your comments are coming from, because there's no sources to really back up what you're saying. All sources that we've covered have pointed that AMD is in this for the long haul. It's going to be quite some time before Intel even catches up. These big contracts with AWS, Microsoft, Sony, Many other tech companies are starting to adopt AMD right now. They're in it for the long haul. Matter of fact, some of their chips have such high orders right now that they can barely fulfill those orders. It's not even about a manufacturing issue; it's about a supply issue. Companies can't wait on Intel to fix their manufacturing issue, so they're going all in on AMD. And the chips that they're demanding are not plentiful as it is right now, but those chips are pretty much sold. And as a matter of fact, AMD is not in any sort of real debt that I know of. I haven't seen any debt posted. If anything, they've been turning profit. They haven't had any losing quarters, to my knowledge, since the inception of their fifth generation processors. So yeah, but people said that checking for you. People said that back in 1999 that they don't see AMD lasting beyond 2000, and here we're in 2019 and they're still surviving. How is this possible? That was one of the biggest reasons why companies did not invest into AMD at the time, because they didn't foresee that AMD with the slot based Athlons um, would compete well with Intel, and every single benchmark outside of Windows pointed to the fact that they were actually competing pretty well, and they actually survived. That was 19 years ago that they made that prediction. Yeah, AMD is not going anywhere. People have been predicting AMD's downfall since the 90s, and none of them has come to fruition. The biggest acquisition that they made was ATI, and that paid dividends for them. Yeah, they can't produce enough processors, Aquateki. All your big outfits like Alienware and um, HP and those big companies, they bought all those processors up, so everything has already been sold. Now, whether or not the trade war has an effect on AMD processors, I don't know for sure. I know that there's been talks about that and how they can get around doing manufacturing in China um, of their processors. They do have facilities out in Dresden and other places, but I don't know how far they can go with it. I'd be interested to see what they do in Africa, because I know years ago they've had a facility out in Cairo. I think they since shut that down. Yo, what's going on, AM1? Oh, I'm not saying that you're wrong. Checking for you. I'm just saying that a lot of what you're saying was said back in the '90s, and none of that has come to fruition. Cointelegraph.com. This next one on docket is from Cointelegraph. Africa using blockchain to drive change. Nigeria and Kenya, Part One. Blockchain adoption in Africa is on the rise for transportation, from transportation to the gaming and lottery industries. Reports of companies utilizing decentralized ledger technology (DLT) across the continent are emerging. Several stakeholders in the African blockchain scene say DLT is the key to solving the development issues plaguing the continent as a whole. They also believe the technology provides a platform for Africa to elevate itself to a position of greater relevance in global affairs. While the general attention of government still appears minimal, some countries are reportedly taking steps to promote increased blockchain adoption. No, nations such as Kenya and Nigeria have announced plans in recent months to pursue regulation and greater cooperation with the private sector to leverage the benefits of accruable from blockchain utilization. So here's a comparison of Africa to top fintech countries. So GDP per capita for Africa is about $1,900. United States is 64,000. China it's about 10,000, and Switzerland is about 82,000. Unemployment rate in Africa is around 6% or greater of sub-Saharan Africa, and 3.8% for the United States, 3.8% for China, and 2.8% for Switzerland. Inflation of from a percentile point of view is 9.7 in Africa, and United States is 2%. Active fintech firms is around 301 fintech firms in Africa and 3,573 in the United States. Switzerland and Africa are pretty much on par with each other in terms of fintech firm startups. Switzerland has 334. Africa has at least 301. You're comparing a continent to a country. Keep that in mind. The Nigerian Union of Road Transportation Workers and a group of partners in the private sector have already launched a blockchain-based scheme targeted at improving interstate road transportation. Stakeholders of the project say the program will improve safety, record keeping, and insurance for road travelers. However, some effort within the technological implementation needs to be dedicated to ensuring blockchain protocols are easy to use. Some commentators point to the steps taken by telecommunication service providers that have resulted in the significant penetration of mobile services across the African continent. As previously reported by Cointelegraph, Femi, how you pronounce this person's name? I think it might be spelled wrong. The Speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives said a concrete legislative framework should be in place for crypto and blockchain regulation. The Honorable Solomon Abdulu, a member of the House, is one of the most vocal proponents for blockchain and crypto regulations in Nigeria. The legislator is the current chairman of the Bipartisan Committee on Blockchain Technology. For Adalu, failure to move quickly on creating an environment conducive to digital technology will see the country fall even further behind in terms of technological advancement. In a series of motions brought up before the House, Adalu espoused the idea that blockchain technology will form a major part of the fourth industrial revolution. An excerpt from one of those motions reads, Africa was not part of the first, second, and third industrial revolution, and these group of lawmakers believe that the fourth industrial revolution driven by digital transformation should not pass us by. Hence, the need to engage all stakeholders to initiate the process of blockchain and internet discussions at this time. We just got finished talking about all of these emerging technologies that will make up the fourth industrialized revolution. And what we're seeing now, Africa is taking a step forward in an initiative to say we need to be a part of this fourth industrial revolution that the Black Brain Trust has been talking about for over a year and a half. Other channels are not talking about this. Other channels are not talking about the things of substance that are going to plague hashtag ADOS in the coming future. If you're not prepared for any of these emerging texts coming out of these discussions, you're going to find yourself unemployed, way behind, too late to play catch up, game over. According to Adalu, blockchain technology also presents another useful solution for Nigeria and Africa as a whole in creating trustless protocols in a country said to be beast beset by institutionalized corruption. Speaking during one of the sessions of the blockchain committee back in July, Adalu declared blockchain is for Africa and Africa must take advantage of it to close the gap in the industrial and economic advancement between the African continent and the rest of the world. On the African continent, Nigeria must take the lead as the giant of Africa. The blockchain has the potential to accommodate a smooth transition from the current web systems to a distributed ledger technology for all spheres of any nation's economy. It is notable that it can extend other currently existing technologies to enhance their data security and efficiency. In the last few years, African nations have seemingly looked to China as a model of how a country can rise from poverty to become a global economic power. Even though industrialization has played a pivotal role in China's growth, several technological constraints, as well as shortages of skills, seriously hamper Africa's progress in this regard. We talked about this before. The need for blockchain uh, uh, um, developers and blockchain literacy um, is nil with melanated people. So if you are a part of the Black Brain Trust and you subscribe to Lionel's blockchain study group, you would be ahead of the curve. But if you're not a part of that study group, you're going to get left behind in terms of critical information to be a part of the continent's rise. So being blockchain literate or an expert or a developer or an architect is actually being pro-Black now, because that sort of emerging technology, digital transformation in the implementation of it is going to advance the continent. You just had the Nigerian uh, uh, um, Speaker of the House talking about blockchain is for Africa. Blockchain is Pan-African in its sense of technological development. For the likes of Adalu, blockchain technology offers a means by which Nigeria and the other African nations can quickly bridge the developmental gap. Such a trend could even follow from the recent boom seen in the fintech arena in several parts of the continent. So this is a map of fintech companies in Africa. Dakar has 2%. Accra has 2%. Lagos, Kaduna, Douala. Lagos has 15%, the majority in West Africa. Nairobi has 28%. Kampala has 5%. Kigali has 2%. Johannesburg has 18%. Cape Town has 23%. Stellenbosch has 2%. The continent is popping right now. It's going to be popping even more after 2020. Additionally, Kenya is also making efforts to lead the way in blockchain adoption in Africa. Since mid-2018, there have been reports of the government looking to enact regulations for cryptocurrency and blockchain technology in the country. Recently, a task force on the blockchain and artificial intelligence in Kenya submitted a report to the government to consider creating a national digital currency. Additionally, Kenya's central bank is reportedly in favor of drafting laws to govern initial coin offerings, ICOs, in the country. This emerging favorable disposition toward crypto and blockchain technology does not, however, extend to Facebook's Lyra project. The Central Bank of Kenya has previously issued warnings about the dangers of the proposed Libra cryptocurrency. In July 2019, Nigeria's Road Transportation Union partnered with digital technology firm BlackBlock Limited, as well as companies involved in insurance and healthcare, to launch a blockchain-based passenger manifest system. traveling by road arguably dominates the interstate shuttling scene in Nigeria, as the cheapest interstate airfare in Nigeria often costs more than double the most expensive interstate bus ticket in the country. A bus ticket from Lagos to Kano usually costs 7,000 to 10,000 Nigerian naira, or $20 to $30 US. However, a plane ticket from Lagos to Benin, a distance of about 320 kilometers, can go for as much as 30,000 naira, about $80. Hmm. Despite the popularity of road transportation in the country, a large portion of the available infrastructure leaves much to be desired, apart from the poor condition of the nation's interstate highway system. Several other important aspects of traveling by road have suffered neglect. For one, travelers involved in the road traffic accidents along the nation's interstate highways often find it difficult to receive prompt medical care. Hospitals have been known to refuse admitting victims of accidents because of a lack of proper identification in insurance documents. This trend is despite the fact that there is a law that mandates emergency treatment for automobile accidents and gunshot victims. There is also the matter of rampant kidnappings that have become a scourge to road travelers in the country. Law enforcement ends up having a difficult time locating the next of kin in the victims. The current paper manifest system exacerbates the problems caused by the areas of neglect. The denominator or the common denominator in many of these cases is the absence of complete passenger information that could prove useful to hospitals and the police. Black Bloc, in collaboration with Universal Insurance and the NURTW, have devised a system to improve PAM using blockchain technology. One of the legacies of government neglect in Nigeria is the disorganization one can often find in the bus parks across the country. The partnership seeks to digitize the PAM system in the country as a way of obtaining accurate passenger information for people traveling by road. The plan is to replace the paper manifest maintained by the travel operators with a fully digital system that ensures proper record keeping. So there you have it. This is only part one. So the blockchain is considered to be Pan-Africanist based on the Speaker of the House or the committee involved in the blockchain task force is saying that blockchain is for Africa. Why aren't you, if you have not already, why aren't you subscribed to Lionel's Blockchain Study Group?
You should also be subscribed to the Full with Money channel.
Yeah, you would have to be a fool with money. We've been discussing
what's going on,
this.
Mike V?
Yo, what's going on, dude?
Chilling.
Yeah, we've been discussing this for over a year now, and people have laughed at us and said that, automation is not going to replace any jobs. We just talked about McDonald's and AI, how much they've invested into this.
Look at what's going on with GM right now, man. United Auto Workers, they just went on strike this morning.
Yep, 50,000. So you got two choices. Either you can get ahead of the wave or ride the wave, or you can get left behind. The links are in the description beneath the video. That's what we have a docket for, Johnny Blaze. Everybody's a Pan-Africanist, everybody's ADOS, everybody's pro-black until it's actually time to be pro-black and Pan-Africanist. Blockchain is a Pan-Africanist tool. That's what they're talking about in the article.
It's levels to this shit, Mike.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole lot, man.
Right? There's the prima facie level, or there's the technological infrastructure level. Like, how about it are you really?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip past this article because I think we've already gone over that. All right, this one's from Vice.com. Brain genius submerges his Bitcoin mining rig in a giant vat of oil. The immersion of cool Bitcoin mining rig cost about $120,000 to make and looks like something straight out of Stargate. At the core of most cryptocurrency networks are miners, the people who use specialized computer equipment to secure the cryptocurrency's blockchain by performing mathematical equations millions of times per second. In exchange for this computing power and the electricity it takes to run the computer, these miners are rewarded in cryptocurrency proportionate to their contribution to the network. Given the high cost of electricity in many places and the computing equipment it takes to mine, it makes sense that miners try to maximize their return in any way possible. This has resulted in some creative approaches to cryptocurrency mining, including running a mining rig in the back of a Tesla, setting up a wind-powered rig in the field, using your own breath to run a mining rig, and even a mining rig that harvests human body heat. But the immersion cooled rig from Reddit user Limping Zebra takes the cake, at least as far as cool factor goes. As detailed in a Reddit post on our Bitcoin, Limping Zebra managed to create a Bitcoin mining rig consisting of 36 ASICs, a specialized chip that in this case can only be used to mine Bitcoin, that are all immersed in a tank of oil. ASICs can get extremely hot while they are running, and if you put a bunch of them together, the heat can quickly damage the chips. To address this problem, Limping Zebra adapted an obscure cooling trick for immersion cooled PCs and servers for their Bitcoin miners. On each of the 36 ASICs in the tank, the fans are reversed so that the cooler oil from the top of the tank is sucked down. Or the tank is sucked up towards the top, and the tank in a cycle meant to optimize the dispersion of the heat waste away from the ASICs. This heated oil then cooled using a plate heat exchanger that also has cool oil from a garden hose running through it. It is then run through a filter to remove particles and pump back into the system. This is crazy. Not going to read all of this, but this is the extreme side of crypto mining. They can keep that.
Hey, Mike, did you hear about NBA player Spencer Dinwiddie? He signed a $34 million contract with the Nets, I think it is. And what he's going to do is he's actually going to issue bonds off the contract, and he's going to tokenize the shit.
Smart move.
Yeah, real smart. Yeah, that came across the wire this morning. I was like, wow, that's going to start a trend right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, real smart.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Yo, what's going on, dude?
Hey, not too much, chilling.
All right. Let me stop and get.
Hello, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I think Mike he stepped away for a quick second.
Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah, because he said he was gonna he had to mute for a second.
So, Gabe, do you have anything you want to add to things that you've heard so far?
No, nothing in particular. Yeah, just listening in and looking for areas to comment on. I guess as we move forward. Yeah, nothing in particular though.
All right. All right, this one is from India today. Chandrayaan-2, hope fading for Vikram lander as night descends on the moon. It has been nearly 10 days since the Indian Space Research Organization lost contact with Chandrayaan-2's Vikram lander during its descent on to the surface of the moon, and hope for reestablishing contact with the Vikram lander is fading fast. When the Vikram attempted its moon landing in the early hours of September 7th, it was the beginning of the lunar day. One lunar day, which was the span of Vikram and its rover Pragyan's mission life, is equal to around 14 Earth days. Interesting. What this meant is that by September 20th, 21st, night will have descended on the part of the moon where Vikram is currently located. And with no sunlight to power Vikram, the Chandrayaan-2 lander will likely go silent forever. Vikram attempted landing on the moon early September 7th. So this is just a picture of the whole kit, the whole entire lander and the rover itself, which I think is actually really cool. They spent $100 million on this whole entire thing, which is impeccable because the U.S. spends billions of dollars on it. India spent 1/10 of U.S. budget on it. So where there's a will, there's a way.
And you're only gonna, yeah, I was gonna say you're only gonna see the price of. Well, we talk about it all the time. Like if depending on how much you scale down the size of your satellites and stuff like that, we're only going to see the price of space exploration drop
significantly. Every year it'll probably drop because the research has been done before.
Now, Mike, what did they launch? Did India launch the rocket that this payload was on, or was this like on another? Okay, they launched the rocket too.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's where a lot of the cost came in. So just the launching of it is where the upfront cost came. So they knew right out the gate what it was going to cost to actually get it up there and actually get it to that point. Landing it is probably the least expensive aspect of it, and the creation of it is actually significantly cheap too, right? Because all of the parts, from what I read this morning, all of the parts came from third-party vendors, so they can basically go to DigiKey's catalog and order all of the parts for it, and then bring it in. So there's very little of indigenous parts actually manufactured for this.
Well, the industry is going more it's going more modular and mainstream, and its acceptance. I mean, that's why you have what was that relativity, the company had 3 Prince rockets.
Right. Right.
You know, so it's the viability of it to the point where you go to relativity, you buy your rocket, you go over to this company, you get a few components and maybe 1 or 2 components from over here. Next thing you know, you got yourself a payload and a vehicle to take it up.
Right. And what Tesla did to build their vehicles, India kind of adopted the same philosophy for the rover and the lander itself.
I mean, that's kind of how you know. I think with any companies, like especially now, with any companies trying to like make something. Let's just say like you're trying to make an electric vehicle or something like that. It's not necessary for you to develop it literally from the ground up, from the wheels up. There's a lot of vendors where you can get the critical components. You don't have to build it, those components, but you
Right.
build what those components are going on to.
Right, and plus you don't have to do any of the research on it. You know that it works because it comes with a warranty.
Exactly.
I think the hardest aspect is actually the human labor or the human capital, and then you're talking about the sweat equity aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, yeah, there is the interest that are involved, right? Like, you know, the parties that are looking to capitalize on whatever data that you know the lunar rover is supposed to get, or this, you know, this vehicle is supposed to get. So there's that part of it too. You know, there's a lot of moving parts involved, and it's just made it. It's just cheaper now to put it all together, to put it up. That's why you have so many smaller countries and stuff, and countries that don't traditionally or aren't traditionally known for having space programs, going very aggressive now with developing satellites and launching them.
Right. All right, let me get to the next article. Come on. All right, this one is from space.com. China's lunar rover has found something weird on the far side of the moon. China's Chang'e 4 lunar rover has discovered an unusually colored gel-like substance during its exploration activities on the far side of the moon. The mission's rover, E312, stumbled on that surprise during the Lunar Day 8. The discovery prompted scientists on the mission to postpone other driving plans for the rover and instead focus its instruments on trying to figure out what the strange material is. Day 8 started on July 25th. U2 began navigating a path through an area littered with various small impact craters with the help and planning of the drivers at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, according to a U2 Drive diary published on August 17th by the government-sanctioned Chinese language publication R Space, which focuses on space and science communication. On July 28th, the Chang'e 4 team was preparing to power U2 down its usual midday nap to protect the rover from high temperatures and radiation from the sun high in the sky. A team member checking images from the rover's main camera spotted a small crater that seemed to contain material with a color and luster unlike that of surrounding lunar surface. The drive team, excited by the discovery, called in their lunar scientists. Together, the teams decided to postpone U-22's plan to continue west and instead order the rover to check out the strange material. With the help of obstacle avoidance cameras, U-22 camera approached the crater and then targeted the unusual color material in its surroundings. The rover examined both areas with its visible and near-infrared spectrometer, which detects light that is scattered or reflected off materials to reveal their makeup. Venus, VNIS, is the same instrument that detected tantalizing evidence of material originating from the lunar mantle in the regolith of Van Karmer crater, a discovery Chinese scientists announced in May. This picture is really, let me explode it for a second. This picture is really interesting. If for nothing else, there's nothing in the background. You can't see anything. There's no trees, there's nothing there. It's just dead space.
Where the hell are the stars at?
That's what there's stars back there. I think what happens with the camera, I think it cancels out a lot of that background noise. That's probably what it's doing. It's canceling out the background noise and just focusing on what's in front of it, the first few feet. But it's just interesting to see that it's so blank and so dead there. Yeah. Let me get back.
I don't know. Sometimes I just think, given all the stars that I see from,
Your mic is breaking up a lot, Complex.
Okay.
So far, mission scientists haven't offered any indication as to the nature of the colored substance and have said only that is gel-like and has unusual color. One possible explanation outside researchers suggested is that the substance is melt glass created from meteorites striking the surface on the moon. Interesting. U-22's discovery isn't scientists' first lunar surprise. However, Apollo 17 astronaut and geologist Harrison Schmitt discovered orange-colored soil near the mission's Taurus Littoral landing site in 1972, prompting excitement from both Schmitt and his moonwalk colleague, Gene Cernan. Lunar geologists eventually concluded that the orange soil was created during an explosive volcanic eruption 3.64 billion years ago. A volcanic eruption 3.64 billion years ago. Chang'e 4 launched in early December 2018 and made the first ever soft landing on the far side of the moon on January 3rd. The U-22 rover had covered a total of 890 feet by the end of Lunar Day 8. Interesting, man. The more and more I read about these rovers on the planet and whatnot, I start to think that this is actually very doable. especially with all the parts availability, that India has demonstrated that they just outsource their parts. They just go somewhere else to go get it, and then put it together within their own fabrication facility. I start thinking like maybe 10%, 20% of a moon mission is actually doable. And then the other half is just the vehicle, right? Launch vehicle. How do you get it from Earth up into orbit? Okay, you have to outsource that. You have to raise money and capital for that to actually get that vehicle to drop you off there, right? Let's say that you did have the funding for that, or let's say someone volunteered to offer to drop off your lunar rover and lander to the moon. So what are the challenges then?
Well, I was going to say, I think the easiest method would be to hitch a ride first, right?
So that's been done, right? So let's say the Russians said that they have the ability to get you up to the moon. Now what?
Build a apartment complex and then charge people hella money for Airbnb.
No, I meant if you're going to put a rover on the moon, a lander on the moon, your biggest obstacles have been taken care of in terms of launch vehicles. That's already been taken care of, whether it's the Chinese, whether it's the Russians, whether it's the some other European Space Agency.
Or the Indians apparently now.
Yeah. What I'm saying here is it doesn't matter who it is. If they're saying we can get you there, you can hitch a ride with us. What's to say that this isn't doable? If I'm ADOS and I'm looking to really make this big splash in terms of self-esteem and whatnot, a landing on the moon would set a precedent for the next 100 years. Because what's going to happen here is that you're not just going to want to go once. If it was successful the first time, even if it does fail like the Indians, that's going to make you want to go back and do it again. Say, okay, we learned from our mistakes. Let's try this one more time. So now the focus isn't about throwing.
Yeah, it does.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I
was just gonna say. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say it sets a precedent. Like, I mean, you put some shit on the moon, like there's no turning back from that point, right?
Right. You have no choice but to go forward. You have to keep going forward with it.
Are there any?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, are there any like U.S. regulations on who can launch things into space? Isn't there something that kind of prevents just anybody from any nation launching things into space?
There's a United Nations treaty that says you can't leave junk in space, and you can't just leave trash around, right? So
okay.
Yeah, so that part has been established. But in terms of like who can put stuff in space, there is no regulation behind that. We saw a article. I think we read 2 articles this summer about these high school teenagers actually creating a cube-based satellite, and that NASA was going to actually put that satellite in space for them, no cost.
Yeah, there's we start talking about that, we start entering into the realm of exopolitics, and that's a realm of political discourse that most people aren't even they have even a faint awareness of, because of the vast openness of the legal jurisdictions as it relates to it. The United States can't stipulate that any other country can't send something up into somewhere that's not in the United States jurisdiction. Okay, so so when it comes down to some of the preliminary space treaties that we do have that Mike was referencing, this has more to do with like keeping the environment free of debris, largely, stuff like that. But in terms of who can claim what and all that, I mean, this is the domain of fourth industrialization. Because I mean, there's been previous hangouts where we literally talked about mining asteroids and shit, and people thought we were out of our goddamn minds. But fast forward some 8 months, a year later, you just see more and more evidence that things.
Not sure what's going on in complex design.
They're going to creep. Oh wait, I'm sorry. My bad. So all of those things are going to start to come into play, and this is where things of an exopolitical nature are really going to start to take shape. But as it stands right now, it's the Wild West up in space.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on in complex design's microphone, but we'll wait for complex to get his mic together. In the meanwhile, we'll go to the next article on the docket. Thermoelectric generator harvests renewable energy from the cold of space. As effective as solar panels are, one of the major downsides is that they only produce power during the day, so excess energy needs to be stored for use overnight. But now, engineers from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, have developed a prototype device that works almost the opposite way, harvesting energy from the cold night sky to passively power an LED. The device works on the thermoelectric principle, where an electric current is created through the temperature difference between the two surfaces. This idea could ultimately end up making for thermoelectric exhaust pipes that help charge a vehicle's battery, camp cooking gear that tops up phones, and clothes that use body heat to power wearable electronics. In this case, the thermoelectric device also made use of another odd phenomenon called radiative cooling. This process is often seen in surfaces that face the sky at night. They can become colder than the surrounding air because they radiate heat straight into space. Since the atmosphere doesn't block infrared energy, past experiments with radiative cooling have shown promise as a way to cool buildings without the need of needing to use energy. So the UCLA researchers combined with these two principles to build their thermoelectric generator. The device is made of an aluminum disc painted black, sitting in a polystyrene enclosure that's wrapped in an aluminized mylar. This keeps the air inside relatively warm, while the disc acts as the cold sky facing the surface. The thermoelectric module uses the temperature difference between the disk and the surrounding air to generate electricity. When this is connected to a voltage boost converter in a small white LED, enough energy was generated to keep the light on. The team tested the device on a rooftop overnight and measured the generator's output over 6 hours. They found that it was able to produce 25 milliwatts per meter square. Granted, that's not a whole lot of energy, but not only is it an intriguing proof of concept that this design works, but the researchers say that it could quite easily be scaled up to a half a watt per meter square. That's actually pretty interesting. All right, this next one is from physics.org. What neuroscientists are learning about our brains in space by launching themselves into zero gravity flight? More than 500 people have traveled into space to date, and while we know a little about how life without gravity affects our physical health, we know almost nothing about how it affects our minds. So, my colleagues and I have been launching ourselves rigs of equipment and our participants into zero gravity flight to perform experiments. And it's a thrilling and sometimes extremely nauseating life, but it's opening new windows into how we think and perceive differently in space. This is no doubt important if we want to colonize outer space. Only a European uses that term. Weightlessness is a key component of the spaceflight experience. Since the first space missions, however, it's been clear weightlessness caused a variety of health issues, particularly degrading muscle mass, causing disorientation and blurred vision. This should not be surprising as all living organisms have evolved under the constant 1g of gravitational force. We also need to find out how weightlessness influences our perception and behavior. Without going to the International Space Station, the best way to do this is on a zero gravity flight. During these flights, a refitted Airbus A310 aircraft follows the trajectory of a parabola. This means it alternates between rise and descents at a 45-degree of inclination. Each parabola starts with a pull-up acceleration phase in which the gravitational load is double Earth gravity. Hypergravity, 2g. This lasts about 20 seconds. The pilots then let the aircraft drop into free fall for the next 20 seconds. Everything and everybody on board on the aircraft is exposed to weightlessness. Microgravity, 0g. Once the craft reaches a particular angle of tilt, the pilots perform a pull-out acceleration in which gravity is again doable. This is repeated up to 30 times, and the entire flight lasts about 3 hours. Doing science on these roller coaster parabolic flight maneuvers is very challenging. There are severe constraints on time. Whatever the experiment requires, it has to be performed in about 20 seconds. Because several experiments must go up together, space is also tight. So forget the comfort of a lab. Instead, visualize a 1.5 by 1.5 meters allocated habitat in which your equipment, experimenters, and participants all need to fit. You can't risk mistakes, so each experimental step, even each movement, needs to be perfectly planned. These movements must also be perfectly synchronized with drops and lifts on the plane. Like a dance, we choreograph and rehearse in the days before liftoff. To me, the real challenge of doing space on a parabolic flight is dealing with motion sickness. It is not by chance that parabolic flights have earned the nickname Vomit Comet. On Earth, we have a system in our inner ear that tells us the direction and the amount of gravitational pull. Relative to the position of our heads in weightlessness, the 1g pull we have experiment our whole lives disappears. The vestibular bular system can no longer function as it should, often leading to space motion sickness, which mimics a severe car motion sickness, nausea, and vomiting. I'm not going to read this whole article because if you want to read it, you can read it on your own. All right, let me get to this last article. All right, this one is from Neuroscientist.com. What does it take for a robot to survive in space? If you know anything about science fiction, you know that aliens are constantly giving humans the business about our unimpressive physiology. How do they keep their blood inside with the skin that thin? Don't they know they are mostly water? The good news for our robotics and space programs is that human billions can build machines that vastly outperform us in durability. It takes some clever engineering, but humanity regularly builds probes and robots that can survive long journeys through some truly astonishing conditions. Here's a look at what it takes for a robot to survive the depths of space. Space looks empty and cold, but is it really? Photos of the cosmos look fairly tranquil, but a great deal of it lacks shelter and any kind of filtration from solar and other types of radiation. Then there are clouds of dust and larger projectiles to worry about, some of which may be traveling at 22,300 miles per hour or faster. NASA has many robotic assets on the ground in Earth's orbit and far beyond. Over the years, they have adopted more and more advanced debris tracking and collision avoidance systems to keep spacecraft, telescopes, and satellites nimble in their journey. The research, the reaches of space aren't the only environments these robots explore. The surfaces of nearby planets and other bodies are inhospitable to humans and rovers alike. The color palette on display on Mars makes it look balmy, but its mood swings can be violent. Daytime temperatures hover around 71 degrees Fahrenheit, but they can plummet overnight to a bone and everything else chilling 146 degrees, negative 146 degrees Fahrenheit. A robot destined for space must have the following characteristics: parts tested apart and together. Making a robot fully qualified usually involves stress testing individual components separately, assembling them, and then testing them again. Sensitive electronics and other parts, therefore, may be tested several times, each at various points of assembly. Strong enough to survive liftoff, robots, rovers, and interstellar probes all leave Earth's gravity well the same way, via rockets. If this equipment isn't tested to withstand harsh vibrations and sudden acceleration, satellites and other remote robotic assets must be tested against 3 times the force of Earth's gravity in order to simulate a real launch. Resilient against a huge range of temperatures, robots are more resilient than humans in the face of extreme temperatures. But outer space and planetary exploration still pose a huge challenge. NASA designed the exploration rover on Mars to withstand extreme temperatures across both night and day. Not surprisingly, a lot of work went into protecting the vital organs of the exploration rover as well as the other interplanetary and interstellar vehicles, probes, and robots we've sent into space. Components like batteries, processors, and other electronics receive active heating in a module NASA calls the Warm Electronics Box, or WEB. Receiving machine condition reports on a regular basis is hugely important here too. Thermostats and heat switches can help the robot adjust its own temperature or warn remote operators of potentially harmful conditions. Thermal insulation is another method for keeping robots with delicate mechanical and electronic components warm and safe. This is the gold foil you'll often see adorning spacecraft and rover parts. This is sometimes made of actual gold and sometimes it's crafted from aluminum, whatever the mission profile and the anticipated energy bands require. In some ways, spacefaring robots even take after our beloved terrestrial automobiles. Cars use radiators to shield or to shed excess heat, and robots do something similar when temperatures begin to rise again come Earthwise. Literal radiators and other heat rejection systems can spring into action to help cool hard-working processors, manipulation tools, and other electronic and mechanical components. No matter how they get their work done, though, robots are an important part of humanity's future. And whether they are uncovering the mysteries of Earth in deep ocean trenches or helping us reach out across vast expanses of space, robots are here to stay and learn. So let me go back to Udacity. Let's go to EDX as well. Hey, Gabe, thanks for coming by. It's Aaliyah. All right, this one is from EDX. So there are several programs where you can get a degree or certificate in robotics. So let me go to professional certificates. Let me go to MicroMasters. And we're gonna go to Penn on EDX, and this is a MicroMasters program in robotics. What you'll learn: how to solve fundamental problems in robotics by applying mathematical concepts, the visual intelligence that allows robots to explore complex environments, how to create smarter robots by applying machine learning concepts, how to learn intelligent controls for robotics, how bio-inspired robots navigate in unstructured environments. This is these are 4 graduate level courses. It's self-paced. It's 1 year. Up to 480 hours of effort is needed. It's $1,256.40. That's about 1 super chat per hour that you would do on these wasteless platforms in the manosphere. So when you really break that down, it's really a cup of coffee a day for those of you who drink Starbucks. Yeah, it's about $1 a day. You really can't beat that. Actually, it's about $1.50 a day. So what I'm saying here is, where there's a will, there's a way. This is from Penn, so you know it's accredited. I'll drop the link in the chat for those who might be interested in this. All right, and this last one is from Udacity. We'll go to programs again. We'll go to autonomous vehicles again. And we'll go to the robotics section. Here. So nano degree and becoming a robotic software engineer. These are the sort of skills that are necessary to actually put these rovers on the moon and other planets. Estimated time is 4 months at 10 to 15 hours per week. Enroll by September 24th. Prerequisite is mathematics and programming. The syllabus, so the silly bus, is robotic software engineer. Prerequisites, intro to robotics, gazebo world, ROS essentials, so robotic operating system. Localization, mapping and SLAM, so simultaneous localization and mapping, which is what SLAM stands for. Path planning and navigation, so learning different path planning and navigation algorithms. Takes 4 months to complete. I think the class is about $1,000. The program is about $1,000. So there you have it. There are also some robotic kits that can be bought from some of these special. Let me see, Radio Shack. No, Radio Shack doesn't even carry those anymore. Make sure I put DigiKey in there because I keep referencing DigiKey. People have no idea what I'm talking about. Share my screen one more time. Hey, what's going on, Super Triz? So this is DigiKey, the world's largest selection of electronic components available for immediate shipment. 99.99% of what you're trying to do is going to be found, from a robotics perspective, is going to be found on this site. When I was younger, I used to receive this catalog, and it was about the size of a phone book. And you can find anything you want for electronics building here. Capacitors, all of the latest things, anything you need to do to build a robot will be found here. There is nothing that they can't find for you. How they go about doing it, I have no idea. I'm just telling you this is the site to go to. Let me see if I can find robots kit. Here we go right here. Educational kits. So they have some Arduino kits on here without the picture, but let me just click on this one. Robotics with the Bobot. So this is a very early beginner robotics kit. It doesn't look like it's in stock anymore, but they do have these sort of kits on their site. Let me go back one more time. Go back to the robotics kits here. And again, they have various amount of kits already built, arms like this one right here. They only go for a few bucks. Can't really beat that. They have this threaded bot with these two eyes on it that are actually cameras that feed back into a Raspberry Pi that drive the robot itself. If you really look into Raspberry Pi development, you can actually, they have a Raspberry Pi operating system in software developers kit. It only takes a few days to learn Raspberry Pi, and you can start writing programs and instructions to it into a robot like this, and it can actually do the work for you. Same thing here. Another fact-based robot. So that's what DigiKey is all about. I'll make sure I put that in the chat as well. All right, that's the end of the docket and end of the live stream for tonight. Make sure y'all hit the like button before you leave if you have not already done so, and share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell and the subscribe button so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. And if you want IT mentorship and you want IT coaching, we can actually help you out with that. You're trying to get into IT, trying to break in, we can actually mentor you in that area. We can coach you to go from one transition to the next. Just email us after the live stream is over, or drop your email in the comment section after the live stream is over, and we can get back to you. One of us will be in touch with you. We can actually have a discussion on your transition. All right, with that being said, we're out of here. Hasta luego. And